Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So, I got a fun and exciting episode for you guys today because this is an update on my video in regards to all of the Nintendo 64 Recomp and PC ports you can play today. Because since I made that video maybe 6 or 8 months ago, we have new games into the mix, so I wanted to make sure that I had a current video for it. If you watched that previous video, the first 4 minutes and 40 seconds of this are going to be brand new content, and then from there, if you need a refresher course, you can keep watching, and if not, you can kind of click off. But if you haven't seen the original video and you want to see a comprehensive list of all of the N64 Recomp and PC ports that are available for you to enjoy today, definitely keep watching. Because honestly, recomps and PC ports are a huge thing, not only on Nintendo 64, but in gaming in general in 2025, so I want to make sure you knew about each and every one of them. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe to ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. Now in the original video, the Mario Kart 64 PC port Spaghetti Kart as well as the Mario Kart 64 static recomp had not been released yet, they were just kind of on the horizon. And that definitely is why I'm starting out the video with some Mario Kart 64. And the nice thing is, at least on the PC port side, Spaghetti Kart just recently updated as well last month, so definitely something you want to check out. This is probably my favorite actual game of 2025 when it comes to any sort of recomp or PC port. And as far as which one is better, honestly, they're kind of the same side of a different coin. One, the recomp is going to give you some HD textures and modability. Two, the PC port is going to give you some other features that the recomp doesn't have. So you can try them both out and decide which one works for you. Just make sure you play one or the other, because honestly, this brings Mario Kart 64 into an entirely new world. It has a ton of extra frames, it has widescreen support, support, and a ton of other features that are going to make it feel a lot more modern than it is on N64. Because even though I do love my N64 collection or my FPGA devices to play those games, just something like this makes it look a little bit fresher, and it takes away that Vaseline look, and that is why definitely a game I can't recommend playing enough, and one of the reasons I wanted to update this video. Because I'm sure in 2026 we're going to see a lot more decomps, recomps, and PC ports come over to N64, because some are definitely in active development right now but don't have playable versions, so I'm only talking about games that you can download and play today, and every single GitHub for these ports or recomps is in the description below, so you'll be able to grab the files, at least the non-gaming files there, so you can enjoy them yourself. Leave me a comment down below and you tell me if you've played the PC port or recomp for Mario Kart 64 before. I know a decent amount of you have definitely checked it out, but honestly there's a lot of people learning about recomps and PC ports from the decompiled games as we speak, so I love keeping videos like this up so they're able to find out where they all are. Now moving over to the second new game in this video, Duke Nukem 0 Hour got a decomp and then very quickly a static recomp from the same maker that did the Mario Kart 64 recomp. And even though this is very alpha status and basically it's just a proof of concept, it is something that you can sit down and play today. And I did talk to some people and they've basically gotten very close to finishing the game, but then they got busy and weren't able to play the last few levels. So my assumption is you can play this game from start to finish, but don't actually quote me on that until I hear somebody actually finish it up. But this is a game on N64 that I said when it got decompiled absolutely needs a recomp or PC port, because it definitely has some janky controls and a lot of performance issues. And at least on the performance issues side, most of that has been fixed up even in the first pass of this actual recomp. And I'm sure you're going to get a lot more controller mods and mods to the game in general when you actually start playing this thing, maybe sometime next year when it gets updated again. But this is awesome because it is a really fun Duke Nukem, and because it does have a first-person cheat in the game, if this thing had widescreen support and mouse and keyboard support on the recomp, you basically have what would be considered a air quotes lost Duke Nukem first-person shooter. But you leave me a comment down below and you tell me, did you play this one back in the day or not? I would be curious. It's just one of those games, absolutely every single time I play it, it 100% hits, and it definitely is great here in the recomp. But I'm going to do a soundtrack sample of this game so you can hear just how good the audio is, and after that soundtrack sample is over, we're back to the original video, so enjoy, and I'll be right back.
Oh, save me, please! What a hero!
But But starting off, we're going to talk about the Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask because one of the recompilation projects has hit 1.2 version status as far as upgrades are concerned, bringing in an entirely new mod engine into the game, letting you do a ton of crazy things with the actual recomp. There's also 2 shipped to Harkinian as well, so this is a game that you have multiple options on when it comes to playing a recompilated game on your actual PC. Whichever version you pick, you really can't go wrong, and honestly, this is my de facto favorite way to play Majora's Mask at this point in time. Getting the widescreen support, getting an improved frame rate, getting the mod support, cheats, and everything else just makes this feel like a brand new game even if you played it a dozen times before. And it probably is, of all of the different recomp projects right now, my favorite one, because I absolutely love Majora's Mask back in the day, and I had the 3DS port as well, but there's something about the original being recompiled here for PC that just 100% works, especially with the very vibey artistic flair that Majora's Mask delivers, being a darker, more atmospheric game than Ocarina of Time. It's just one of those games that when I played it back in the day, it 100% hit, and I have such a ton of nostalgia for it. And honestly, here with the dual analog controls, with the increased frame rate, with all of the different mods if you want to switch masks quickly, it just does absolutely everything perfectly. And that's all you really want out of a recomp. You want to play the same game you played before, but you want to play it in a new modern lens with all the quality of life improvements. This is going to be the same campaign, it's going to be the same story, the same visuals, and the same audio. It's just going to sound and look better and have all of those quality of life improvements. And I've stated in previous videos, I really do feel like these recomps don't just keep these games alive for us, the people that grew up with them in the 90s playing Nintendo 64. I really do think it brings them to a modern audience because kids today, maybe they're 16, maybe they're 22, didn't grow up with a Nintendo 64, so trying to get them to play Majora's Mask on a real Nintendo 64, the Mr. FPGA core, it might feel a little bit old and antiquated, but a kid today who's played something like Breath of the Wild or the sequel and wants to play more Zelda games might actually play this and think to themselves, okay, it's not as graphically impressive, but the game still hits and it looks like it should, so I'm 100% in. So from everything here in the footage, I just absolutely love this, and it really is my favorite recomp of the entire bunch. And again, that's just down to nostalgia for this being my favorite game, but we still have 6 more games to cover. But that being said, what's your number 1 recomp request down below? For me, I'd love to see Sin and Punishment because I feel like that game could use a lot of help getting modernized, but for nostalgia purposes and love purposes only, Bomberman Hero is my favorite Nintendo 64 game and one of my favorite games of all time. That is just absolutely one I would love to see in a recomp port. As we come into the fairy fountain here again, just look how absolutely stunning this is. I love the mixture of both the old models with the low poly count along with the higher internal rendering resolution and all of the little bumps to the textures. It's basically a combination of old and new put together, and it's put together so incredibly well, and I have finished this game from start to finish, 100% completing it. I ran into no bugs, no glitches, or any other issues whatsoever. So as far as Majora's Mask is concerned, whichever version you decide to play, you're in for an absolutely amazing time. One of the best games ever made, and honestly one of the best recomps ever made across all platforms. Though if I really had to answer, I would say my most impressive recomp that I've talked about so far has got to be Sonic Unleashed on the Xbox 360, just down to how complex something like that really would have been. Let's move over to the next game in the series. This is Super Mario 64, specifically Render 96. It has full ray tracing support. I'm playing this on my 3080 Ti, and it is another port of a Nintendo 64 game you can download today. And just so you know, all of the links to the different GitHubs and installation pages are down in the description below, so you can use this video as a minor database of all the projects. And this one sounds even better than real hardware in my opinion, so it's the first soundtrack sample. Go ahead and listen for 45 seconds. I'll be right back with more games. In my opinion, that's definitely the best track from the entirety of Super Mario 64, and it sounds even better here coming out of the Render 96 version of the game. And with real-time ray tracing, you can see here everything is casting a light and a shadow, and all of that light is motivated coming from the correct directions. This is just another awesome version of the game. Now, at least on my installation, I did have a little bit of a visual glitch on Mario's face, but I do not keep my actual GPU driver anywhere near current because for the most part it is used specifically just in DaVinci Resolve to render projects, both my own as well as clients, and you don't change the driver if you don't have to. Once you get onto something stable that just works, you kind of leave it alone, which is not what you would do at all if you were using it primarily for gaming purposes. But honestly, for my work, I just leave my system kind of stable and stagnant and only update when absolutely necessary, because 9 times out of 10 some sort of update just absolutely breaks my workflow and it drives me nuts. But as far as Super Mario 64 is concerned, I will leave links in the description below. There's 2 different ways to play this game on PC, and both of them are absolutely incredible. Now, one that came out just recently I did a video on is the decomp and recompilation of Star Fox 64, and this is definitely another game that I feel like 100% benefits from the improved graphics, the widescreen support, and more specifically the frame rate. Just this feels like a smoother, better version of a game that you know, love, and remember, and it is probably my favorite Star Fox game of all time. So getting this here on PC with all of these new visual effects, all the quality of life improvements, and everything else that this recomp brings to the table, it is the de facto best and most modern way to play something like Star Fox 64, and honestly, I would use Mr. FPJ Real Hardware and basically leave any of the NSO offerings for any of the games in this video to dead last. And that's not because I don't like Nintendo. Sure, I poke fun at some of their lawsuits on the channel every once in a while, but NSO emulation just really isn't up to snuff for some of these games. Pretty much all of them have some sort of frame pacing issues or other glitches that make them kind of look uglier than even the source material. But as far as this recomp is concerned, it absolutely looks stunning. It has all of the models and visual effects that you remember from the original Star Fox 64, just makes everything look better. And I think this might be the most visually improved game of the entire bunch, especially when we move to some of the later levels, like the lava planet here. Everything just looks incredible. Those polygons undulating, making it look like lava waves. The skybox in the background, it still has that Nintendo 64 blur, just sharpened up a bit. It is still the exact same game that you played back in the day. It just feels that much more modern. And the great thing is, if you have your PC hooked up to a television or a nice monitor, you can just go 4K OLED on this thing and it makes it look absolutely stunning. And it really does make me think Nintendo is long overdue for a new Star Fox game, so hopefully on Switch 2, when that launches, we do get another announced title, because Star Fox on the Wii U, fun but definitely flawed, and I feel like that kind of put Nintendo off on giving us another Star Fox game. But in the meantime, you have Star Fox 64 recompiled for PC, and it is the best way to play this. And just so you know, all of the games I'm featuring on this video, you can play them from start to finish. You can watch the credits scroll. There should be no game-breaking bugs, glitches, or otherwise that are going to interfere with your fun. And honestly, the Star Fox 64 soundtrack was always incredible, and it sounds even better coming out of the recomp version of this game, so it's going to be your second soundtrack sample. Go ahead and listen for 35 seconds, but come back because I still got more recomp games to show you that you can play today.
Don't mess up that R-wave! It's quiet. Too quiet.
Hey, what?
Be careful, it's a trap! Use bombs wisely!
Classic soundtrack, classic game, and a modern new lens to view it through. Now moving over to Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, this is one that's been out for a while now, but in a lot of the recomp and decomp videos I've been talking about, people keep leaving comments saying that they wish they could play Ocarina of Time on PC in this method. Well, the reality is, and the good news is, you can do that today, and it is, in my opinion, an even better way to play the game than real hardware, and that's just because not only doesn't it have the graphical improvements, 16:9 support, but it's also got a boss rush mode, a randomizer built in, as well as some of the beta elements from Ocarina of Time, the things you saw in videos and magazines back in the day that never actually came out when the game shipped on cartridge, because we got so many previews for Ocarina of Time. And when people played it, if they were eagle-eyed and read a lot of previews, they would notice that a lot of the things they saw were not included in the final build. And honestly, so much of that information has been recovered and remade and added into different versions of the game. Having it here, at least in part, is a ton of fun. And this is another one that just excels in this recomp version. Now granted, some of the things like the actual pre-rendered backgrounds backgrounds aren't going to look as good as the rest of everything else, and that's just because they don't scale as well as actual 3D polygons. This is one of the few games that actually use those pre-rendered backgrounds. So you'll see here, it's a little bit of a total mismatch between Link and the enemies and that actual Temple of Time in the background. When you get into sort of any interior that doesn't use pre-rendered backgrounds, like inside the Dagu tree right here, it just looks stunning. And again, just like Majora's Mask, this is just going to be such a fun way to play. You can do it in native frame rate, 20 frames per second at 4:3. You can dial the frame rate up to 60 or 120 frames per second in widescreen support. There are cheats enabled. You can basically just craft the version of this game that you want, and that really is nice. And that's why I love all of these projects. They don't just make games look prettier, they don't just make them control better or sound better, they also give you, the player, the ability to kind of craft the experience they want. And the boss rush mode is fun, but if you've never played a Legend of Zelda randomizer, I can't stress enough just how much fun the Ocarina of Time one is. Even if you know this game from front to back, if you play a randomizer for the first time, it's going to feel like you're playing the game for the first time, and that's something definitely memory-wise I would love to be able to relive, because all of these games will never get the first playthrough back. And that's just what it's like to be a retro gamer. There's games that we played that we absolutely fell in love with back in the day, but you're never going to get that first playthrough impression back. I just wish I could wipe my memory and not remember playing something like Grim Fandango so I could experience it for the first time again. But these decomps and recomps are about as close as we get to that reality. Now, one game that has a recomp that I finally finished that I didn't actually beat back on Nintendo 64 is Perfect Dark, because this game came out late, and honestly, the slideshow frame rate really did put me off completing some of the later levels. It was only once the Nintendo 64 Turbo Core and the performance patch were out that I played the game from start to finish on quote-unquote real Nintendo 64 hardware, and I absolutely loved it. And with this recomp, you get that Nintendo 64 look, but now you're going to get it at a rock-solid frame rate with all of the bells and whistles of the modern era, while it still looks like a Nintendo 64 game. But for me, the Nintendo 64 original, when it released, was just too slow, just too much of a slideshow to enjoy. But leave me a comment down below and tell me how you felt about it. But now you can play it today on a modern system, and it's 100% good to go. And it's also going to be 100% your next soundtrack sample. 35 seconds, I'll be right back with a couple more games.
Huh? What? What? Target sighted.
I mean, it sounds like Perfect Dark, and that's all you could really ask. But as we move on to later levels, again, the increased frame rate in this one just 100% does it for me. There's not much in the way of visual enhancements, it just has that internal rendering resolution bump. But the Nintendo 64 just was not up to par when this game came out. Rare pushed the hardware more than anybody else, but it always felt like their late stage games, the Perfect Darks, the Conker's Bad Fur Days, the Jet Force Geminis, should have been held over for GameCube launch games, because they could make a really pretty game that had a really pretty screenshot and was a ton of fun, but in actual execution, some of their games just ran too slow for me to enjoy. And I know everyone has their own opinion on that. Maybe it 100% worked for you, and that is totally cool. But Perfect Dark especially, I just had a lot of issues in the controls, because when that frame rate would lag and everything would chug, trying to actually aim in the game would feel a little bit like a chore. So having this version just makes it all the better. Now moving over to a game I absolutely fell in love with back on Nintendo 64 and still love today. This is Mystical Ninja Starring Goemon, and this is another game that I did a video on last year that got a full recomp version, first for the Japanese ROM and then for the North American English one. And obviously most of my audience is English speaking, so having that English version makes an absolute massive ton of difference. And it's one of those games that has such a weird sense of humor. You see this dude here in the pagoda just talking to you and giving you the story. This is just going to show you all of the weirdest, wackiest stuff you can possibly show you all at once, but you're absolutely going to love playing it. And this is probably, at least as far as games are my concern, my favorite favorite recomp. It might not be my favorite on a technical level, but as far as favorite game just to sit down and play, I've got a soft spot for this one, and I'm so glad to see it here. I love the bright, cheery, colorful graphics. I love the open world design. Trying to figure out where to go next, it kind of feels like an action platform RPG in all of the best ways possible. You have different shops to go into, different people to talk to, and it just hits in every single aspect as a game. But compared to every other game I've shown you on the list so far, I feel like it's one that not everyone played. Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Star Fox 64, Super Mario 64, and Perfect Dark. Those are titles that basically everyone played if they played Nintendo 64 back in the day. But Goemon here was definitely a bit of a deeper cut. If you've never played it before, definitely check out the recomp unless you want the complete Nintendo 64 aesthetic on Mr. FPJ or real hardware, where everything's going to be in 4:3 with the original resolution and the original frame rate. And while this game wouldn't slow down near to the degree of stuff like Perfect Dark, it still could have some issues here and there. And trust me, if you've seen this game before and you didn't think it was for you, just give it an hour of your time. All you have to do is lose an hour if you don't like it, and everything you have to gain is one of my favorite Nintendo 64 games of all time. I would say it's a hidden gem, but enough people know about it that I can't really state that. But I absolutely love this recomp and what it does, and this game also has a spectacular soundtrack, so it is your last soundtrack sample of the video, and I'll be right back. Just some classy loungy elevator music right there. Now the last recomp I'm going to talk about until I close out the video is going to be Dinosaur Planet, and this one's probably the most fun as far as just seeing something that you're never supposed to see before, because Dinosaur Planet never actually came out on Nintendo 64. It was close to completing maybe like 80% of its development until it was moved over to the GameCube and turned into Star Fox Adventures, but the game actually leaked out some years ago, and right now, at least the recording of this video, the recomp actually runs that stock ROM. Now there are some ROMs out there that have patches and fixes, but right now the recomp isn't going to be able to run those, but hopefully soon I'll definitely run an update video when that happens. And this one is the freshest of all of the games on this video, and it is definitely worth checking out. Don't expect a full game here because of course it's an incomplete game and it is going to have some bugs, but from a historical preservation standpoint, I absolutely love to see stuff like this happen, and I'm sure now that it is in a recomp engine, fans and modders are going to go in, improve it, fix up a lot of those bugs, maybe even add in some content, and try to package up the most complete version of Dinosaur Planet that you could actually ask for, because again, it's another late stage rare game and another one that kind of chugs on real hardware but runs exceptionally well here on the recomp, outside of the fact that again, it isn't finished, so don't expect it to run perfectly because there are still a ton of bugs in it. But that is the list of recompiled games on this video, and again, in the description below there is a link where you can download all of the builds. Now of course you need to own the games and bring your own files for those. The actual recomp versions are just software that you have to put the ROM into for it to compile and run, but it really isn't hard, and if you have any questions or comments, leave me one down below and I'll try to help you guys out. But just check some of these out. It basically keeps the Nintendo 64 dream alive in a completely modern way. I absolutely love them. But we're done. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.